No promises of comfort or bliss, just truths we strive not to dismiss. This is the Finding Gnosis show, where illusions break and deeper truths grow. Philosophy and thought light the way through the dark toward a brighter day. Not endless struggle, but a fight worth the cost, seeking the meaning we thought was lost. Pessimism asks, why even try? We answer with questions reaching the sky. A critique of the systems, the myths we hold, a reflection on truths both stark and bold. Depressive realism clears the haze, while hope takes root in critical gaze. We search for a path, no matter how steep, to find the truths that lay buried deep. This is the Finding Gnosis show, where illusions break and deeper truths grow. Philosophy and thought light the way through the dark toward a brighter day. Not endless struggle, but a fight worth the cost, seeking the meaning we thought was lost. Promise ease, we don't promise rest, but a journey to uncover what's best. In cosmic indifference we still find might, to question, to change and to ignite. Welcome to Finding Gnosis, where truth takes a stand. Together we search, together we understand. Through reflection, critique and bold exploration, we strive for meaning and revelation. The journey begins, the truths will unfold. This is the Finding Gnosis show.
Hello to whoever's there. 11 of you there. Do click on the link in the live chat if you want to come on and have your say. Today's topic is unusual. So sorry, it may be too unusual, too stupid, maybe even, perhaps, probably. It's morphic fields, the power of the brain, or forces from the mind, shaping reality, doing things strangely in ways that perhaps most people aren't aware of. And that is the topic of the conversation. What the fuck are morphic fields? Well, that's kind of what we'll look into. I mean, I've read a little bit about them, and I have to say I'm not convinced. I don't think they exist, or at least I don't think it's something that is impacting us in the way that the people who advocate that it is say it is. So hello to everybody there. We got a Hiri. We got a hello to Green Soul. You're on the show. Hello to Green Soul.
Hey, how you doing? I'm glad to be here. I don't know if you remember on Wednesday you had Hillary emails and Richard.
I do indeed. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that I just found your hang and it says Gnosis. I was like, okay, they're talking about Gnostic scriptures or something. So I put it in one of my happy chats in the back, and they came. So yeah, I hope things were okay.
Oh,
Even
right.
though
Well,
yeah,
I have to say thank you very much. Yeah, we didn't exactly talk about the lost gospels or anything. The show is called Finding Gnosis. I mean that in a kind of new age Gnostic way. Sorry for any of the ancient Christian Gnostics out there. Um, but when I say Gnosis, I mean I'm looking for the hidden knowledge, something we don't know that will make everything make sense, be that spiritual or scientific, just some knowledge that might make everything okay. Is that okay for you?
oh, no, that's
Yeah.
totally fine.
But I
You
do
got me
I
with
do
the word
admire
gnosis, and I was like, okay,
I
yeah,
do admire the ancient Christian Gnostics. I admire their kind of efforts, at least in describing what is going on here. And I think, in terms of a religion, if I had to be one, I would be a Gnostic myself. I think it makes the most sense, as in, like, there's no other reason I can think of that's as well explained as them in terms of why we're here. It does seem to be for for malevolent reasons that we're here. It doesn't seem to be in our best interest to be here. But having said that, it doesn't seem to be an easy thing to get out of. And I do kind of I toy with the soul trap theory. I mean, I think about reincarnation sometimes. I hope it's not true, but I do take these things seriously. I find it
yeah.
hard to believe in the continuity of the soul.
Hmm.
Um, but I still take these things seriously because, in all honesty, I don't know what's going on. That's why I have this show. It is called Finding Gnosis for a reason, because I don't know what is going on. It just seems very worrying indeed. So, Green Soul, you're new here.
Yes,
Welcome.
yes.
And would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Green Soul. I've been in this type of in this platform on YouTube for since 2012. Um, I first hung out with a group called the Paradigm Shift, right? And they were very new agey, very very new agey. But it was just fun to actually kind of be a part of that group for a little bit. And I found another group that I'm still with, um,
Mhm.
Projo. He just does random hangouts, but we actually became
Right.
friends, and then I kind of stayed from there. But the community that I was exposed in YouTube were great debate communities where it was like theists versus atheists, and
Oh,
they
the
were
debate,
taught.
debate
Yeah,
me bros.
yeah, there's a lot of debates, but this is way back. This is
Okay.
like 2012,
Oh,
and
wow.
this is when Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins and guys like that were very popular.
Hmm.
The God Delusion, things like that, and it was just a debate. I never really participated in the debate because I had no stake in the game, but I got to meet a lot of interesting and nice people. You
Okay,
know,
that's interesting. Thank you for that. I
yeah.
mean, it sounds like a fun time actually to be around. I mean, it's kind of a jaded scene now, unfortunately. There were these kind of novel explorers on the internet back in the day who were
Mhm.
staking new claim, or at least claims that weren't so cliched back in those days. And it was a kind of exciting time, I'm sure, to be a listener
Oh,
and even
it was crazy. It was like the Wild West,
right.
back then. You could do almost anything. There was you there were groups that you could just go and randomly go in, um, and you will find, like a
Crazies.
Buddhist. Yeah,
All
well,
right. Okay.
one time I saw a Buddhist. All they did was just meditate in the hangout,
It
while
sounds like
live on
Discord.
YouTube.
It sounds like modern day
Yeah,
Discord.
yeah, basically it was, and
Yeah. Yeah.
people will expose themselves right on
Oh
YouTube.
shit.
You can see it. Yeah, it was
It was a crazy
insane.
time. It
It
was a
was
crazy
in
time.
it was an insane time, and
All right, Green Soul. Well, Green Soul. What are whilst we're waiting for others to join, what are your beliefs about this reality then? First of all, you said you were involved in the whole atheism and theism debates. Uh,
Not really involved. I was more of a spectator. Yeah,
And what
yeah.
did you come? Bearing that in mind, and obviously your own life experience
Mhm.
before and since, what's your kind of view on kind of the God matter now and or
Uh,
spirituality, or have you derived any meaning from this life yourself?
well, uh, I actually belong to a Sufi order.
A
I'm a
Sufi, did you say?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you could say I'm a whirling dervish. You know, so like I've been there, so over 20 years. I've been involved um,
Can you
in
explain?
that
Because I've heard the
practice.
Sufi before. Can you remind me what it is? I've heard the word before, but I can't remember what exactly it is.
Well, it's a path of action. Like there are practices of meditation, and it's basically the theme of you know I- of love. It's like the universe is actually built on love. We do things for love. So that is the core belief of the order, but it's not so much a belief, it's more of action. And it's a
Okay.
progress where you lift the veils from, what you guys say, like the ego, that we say nafs.
Hmm.
So we work on those things. And I
Okay.
don't know if you ever heard of the poet Rumi.
Uh, you'll have to enlighten me.
Well, Rumi was a poet, from
Mhm.
Afghanistan, and then came to
I was going to
modern
say,
day
is Sufi something to do with Islam or something? Is it? Is it? Is that?
Yes, yes, it is.
Oh,
I would say it is Islam. But
oh,
you know, they will say like it's a more mystical branch of the
yeah,
religion.
yeah,
But
yeah. Would you consider yourself a Muslim then?
yes, I am a Muslim.
Oh, okay.
But
And
however, in order,
were you raised as a Muslim? Were
no,
your family? No.
no,
Okay.
no, I was not racist. It was something that I
Yeah, I mean,
kind of.
that's why it kind of threw me because I'd heard of it,
Mhm,
but then it is one of those things that is
mhm.
kind of it's like the woo woo Muslim stuff, isn't it? It's like they believe in like jinn and all that, right? And they have all these like weird kind of.
Yeah, they that's the religion itself. They have,
All right.
their things like that, but um I don't promote it. I don't
Uh-huh.
really talk about it. People ask me, I'll tell them, yeah, I do that. You know, um
Why on earth did you become one? If you don't mind me asking, I know that's I'm not. I mean that like what
okay.
like.
Well, I was going through after college, I was going through like a spiritual phase.
Hmm.
I didn't really have religious parents. I grew up Catholic, and after high school, when I was going to college, I delved into Gnosticism, yoga, you name it. I did dive into Islam a little bit. I did like the practices of the fast. And I think that one day I decided, you know what, let me try this, Um, I tried it, I, I wasn't crazy about it, but I think I went to a retreat, like in New York State, and I wanted to, I checked out this website where, I seen people dancing. They were twirling. I was like, what is that? And I went to this retreat, and supposedly it was the Sufi order. It was the Mevlevi order, and I just fell in love with it.
Right.
I think ever since that time, I didn't really look back. I said, you know what, this is for me. It was more of a personal thing, with me. It
Do you
was.
think it was perhaps the people rather than the theology? And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I don't know enough about your theology. But and I mean this respectfully. I'm sorry to any Muslims out there, but I have looked at the Quran and I wasn't overly enthused. And I don't mean I'm sorry. Don't strike me down or whatever. But I mean,
The thing
I mean,
is,
the
yeah.
problem I have with all religious texts is they are words,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
words are open to interpretation. And I
correct.
would say the same thing about the Bible, the New Testament, or the Talmud, whatever. I would say the problem is they are written down, and the problem
Mhm.
of words is you may say they're from God, but they are still to be interpreted by humans, and we interpret them different. And that
Mhm.
causes a lot of problems. Just one second, you can answer. I've got a call coming here, so just one second. I am listening, though. I'm going to tell the other person calling my mobile to call me another time.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. I think with the scripture, especially when it comes to the Quran, is more recitation and reflection. And there's ways of interpreting it. Same thing with any scripture. I read a whole bunch of scriptures from different religions. I met, read the Tibetan Book of Dead. I read the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, I'm saying that wrong. I'm butchering it. I haven't really read too much of the Bible, some chapters of it, but um, I think you could get insight in a lot of those scriptures. But at the same time, you could justify your actions by using scriptures, good
Yeah,
or bad,
I,
you know.
I mean, but with respect, it's great that you came on here and told us what you're about. I appreciate it, but
Hmm.
I think we'll have to talk about that another day because there's a lot we could go into there. I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
welcome Pastor D here. Pastor D, welcome to the show again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And how are you doing, Pastor D?
I am wonderful because I have Jesus in my heart.
There's no need to be sarcastic or mocking off those who have
You almost
found
sound like
Jesus.
Bill Clinton.
Mm,
You sounded like Bill Clinton for a second. What? I feel your
Yoga is
pain.
a pathway to demonic spirits.
right. So, Pastor D, anything else you'd like to add in your introductory remarks?
Oh, what's today's topic?
Oh, morphic fields. We'll go into it. I don't even know much about it, but from what I gather, it's a load of bullshit. I'm really sorry, guys, to have started the topic, but
Yeah, can I give a
we'll probably make
statement on
short
it?
drift of it. We'll make short drift of it, maybe, and move on to something else, perhaps. But we can
Okay.
talk about the mind in general, whether it has any power outside of the cranium, beyond your power to do your actions, words, and yeah, so beyond your words and actions, does the brain do anything outside of your skull? Okay, in a kind of
Okay.
in a kind of unusual sense. So maybe like telepathy. Is there such a thing as the collective subconscious or the collective memory? Are there any hidden forces that the mainstream doesn't really give credence to? These are interesting questions to contemplate. I am not sold on any of it, but it is still interesting. I mean, it's just something you have to push out of the way if you're going to take reality seriously. If you're going to analyze it, you have to push this stuff out of the way first, and you have to give it its fair due, and before you move on to something else. Seb, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and I feel like
Okay.
I should say like a statement about morphic fields.
Oh, you want to
So
make
it
a
was
statement about morphic fields? Okay. Well, first of all, can you speak extremely loudly into your microphone and make the statement? Thank you.
yeah. So morphic fields, it's actually bullshit. But then there are some channels on YouTube that do sound healing, and I'm not going to make any comments on that on that at all. But I'd say that morphic fields, that there is no such thing as a morphic field.
Thank you very much for that, Seb. Would you be able to get the Wikipedia page for Morphic Fields up on the screen, and we'll go through it, we'll read it out and see what it's about, give it
Okay.
and give it like a kind of analysis, see what it's about. As I said, there have been some experiments done. From my cursory glance at it, I thought the experiments that they did were a complete joke. I don't think they were very clinical, and I'm kind of sorry I chose this subject, but it's just something that keeps coming up on my algorithm. And there is this guy, I forget his name, the fellow with the PhD who's going on about it all the time. You'll be able to tell me his name. The kind of father of morphic fields. What's his name?
Rupert Sheldrake.
Rupert Sheldrake. That's it. This guy, right? When he talks, it's an example of how somebody can seem really intelligent, really clever, and maybe because we're all kind of brought up in this Anglophonic kind of system where if you talk in a certain way and if you appear in a certain presentation, then perhaps you should be taken seriously in an academic sense. But the problem with that is it's not always a good thing to do, you know.
You ever
In
listen
fact,
to Jordan Peterson?
oh bloody hell! Of course I
That
have.
guy is
Have you?
awful, isn't he? He's an
I would
arrogant
say
prick.
it's like the Pareto principle. He's like 80% crap, 20% okay.
Right.
But like yeah, I mean, but the problem is we all got okay bits about us, but he's in no way, shape, or form fit to be a guru, like he kind of basically
Well,
claims to be. You know?
so many people follow him. They just think he's
I
God,
know
or
they
he
do
used to
because
be. Crazy.
so many people, and understandably so, are lost in this world. And the problem
True.
with being lost is you're trying to. It's a stormy sea. The winds are howling, and we're all trying to find our way to safety. And you know, sometimes you cling to anything. And Jordan Peterson is just one of those people that people are clinging to. But unfortunately, it's not ultimately that good, you know. I mean, he's not wrong
No,
about
he's not.
everything, but he's not a
No,
genius like, by any stretch of the imagination, in my view. I mean, he
no.
hasn't.
But he
I don't know
talks
what.
with big words, and he's got a
Yeah, yeah,
PhD, and
yeah.
he's a
But if you listen to him enough, he
psychologist.
just says the same thing again and again.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But you know, that's the kind of disappointing thing about humans. Generally, none of us are polymaths for the most part. Well, obviously, some of
No,
us are, but some of us are. But you know, a lot of us are just like me included. And I'm a poor man's version, by the way, of this. We're kind of like just these weird wheels of ideas and words, you know, and we're just saying the same thing again and again. And I think as you
yeah,
get older, that becomes more obvious, first of all, in others and then in yourself. And I think it is something that's quite, to me, it's kind of annoying how we're just so, we're just like this kind of record player, just playing the same record, you know, after a period of
yeah,
time on this earth.
yeah.
You learn enough stuff, you get a certain amount of wisdom, experience, and then you're just playing the same fucking song for the rest of your life. And the problem is the song becomes, it degrades as you get older, and
Oh yeah.
it becomes the airing of it also is old fashioned perhaps. So you're singing a tune from the 1960s when everyone else is singing, you know, the latest fucking grime from fucking urban grime from fucking, you know, 2025.
Right.
So you're out of place, you're out of touch, and you're out of luck before you know it. Anyway, Seb, are you sharing that screen?
Oh yeah, I'll do that. My biggest criticism of Jordan Peterson is his views about.
Sorry?
Never mind.
No, go
Guys
ahead.
watching, if you're watching, could you please like the video for the algorithm? Because the more likes it gets, the more likely it is to show up as a suggested video on YouTube. And then obviously people might watch it and come here and talk to us live. Also, if you have the ability to do somewhere, please share it somewhere. I don't know, on your community posts, your Facebook, your Reddit, your Discord, your Instagram, wherever, whenever. Let's all be here together, now and forever, online, on the stream. Amen. Seb, have you done that yet? You've done it. Okay, I'm going to show
Yeah,
it now. You ready?
yes. I was
Okay.
actually going to share some of the views about Jordan Peterson, but I've
Oh,
saved.
you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Let's get into this morphogenic fields, which is the kind of long-winded name for a morphic field. So, would you like to start reading there, Seb? And if you could share the link in private chat, so we're all on the same page here, and you know, we can all perhaps take our turn reading. So if you go to the private chat, people who are in the live stream studio, Seb is going to share the link to this particular page, and we can take it in turns to read it, so we all
Yeah,
participate.
I can't read it because I'm driving.
No problem. You take care and watch the road. All right, Seb. Well, you share that, and we'll take it in turns.
Okay, so you said I was going to read it.
Yeah, can you share the link in the private chat, please, in the studio, and read it as well?
Okay.
And anybody who's just joined, welcome, and you can join us here. The link to do so is in the live chat. You'll see it pinned at the top. I do hope you're well. Okay.
I lost it.
Hello to Isaac Spirit Man.
Oh,
How
there
you
it is.
doing? Good. Thank you for joining us, Isaac.
Thank you as well.
Okay. Isaac, sorry if this subject is a bit strange. Seb, you haven't shared the link yet.
I did.
In the private chat, are you sure?
Yes.
Oh, you shared it
No,
in
this-
the. I haven't got it. No. In the private chat, in the StreamYard studio, please.
Oh yeah.
No, this subject's amazing to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like the symbiotic, the planktonic solids that make up like the planktons in the ocean and the geometric form and how it's related
Okay.
to weird DMT stuff and
It is a
dude,
very
I've been
strange
stung
and
by
weird.
I've been stung by
I
a
tell you what.
jellyfish.
Go ahead.
I've been stung by a jellyfish and I've been stung by a sea anemone, and I swear that shit changed my DNA.
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
There
I feel
are
like
like
there's some
epigenetic changes that happens.
All right. Well, anyway, if you could read this article, Seb, starting with the title "Morphogenetic Field" and then go down.
In the developmental biology of the early 20th century, a morphogenetic field is a research hypothesis and a discrete region of cells in an embryo. The term morphogenetic field conceptualizes the scientific experimental finding that an embryonic group of cells, for example, a four-limbed bud.
Pause it. Sorry, guys. I'm going to share. I forgot to say I'm going to share this in the live chat for anybody who's watching. They can read it as well. Obviously, this is just a Wikipedia page we're reading. Actually,
What's a four-limbed
go ahead. I've
bud
shared it.
embryo?
Go ahead there, Seb. Keep reading. Sorry. And when you've had
Could be-
enough, just pass it on. And Isaac, if you could read it. Cheers.
Yeah, but I have the reading stamina. I could read for hours.
Well, no, we're going to take it in turns. You know.
Okay, but then you want Isaac to do it? Then Isaac can do it.
No, we can take it in turns. If you don't want to read now,
Yeah,
then
but what's the problem, right? If yeah, whatever. Okay, could be transplanted to another part of the embryo and in ongoing individual development still gives rise to a forelimb at an odd place of the organism. And it describes a group of embryonic cells able to respond to localized biochemical signals called field, leading to the genesis of morphological structures, tissues, organs, or parts of an organism. The spatial and temporal extents of such a region of embryonic stem cells are dynamic, and within it is a collection of interacting cells, out of which a particular tissue, organ, or body part is formed. As a group, the cells within a morphogenetic field in an embryo are constrained. Thus, cells in a limb field will become a limb tissue. Those in a heart field will become a heart tissue. Individual cells within a morphogenetic field in an embryo are flexible. Thus, cells in a cardiac field can be redirected via cell-to-cell signaling to replace damaged or missing cells. The imaginal disc in larvae is an example of a discrete morphogenetic field, the region of cells in an insect embryo. Early
Okay,
concept.
so Isaac, if you could read the history, thanks, Seb. That sounded like gobbledygook, but it's actually this is obviously. I think this is real biology here, right? This bit, and
Yeah, and it seems like so far, let me. So
I
far,
mean, this is an argument from some biologists. It's not necessarily taken too seriously, but
oh yeah, but this isn't about the Rupert Sheldrake.
no, it's not.
But,
This isn't about morphic fields of the mind. This is about how it's involved in the development of an embryo.
yeah,
But it is interesting. They're still talking about these fields causing the cells to
Communicate.
act in one way or another depending on which field they're within. And it just sounds like bullshit to me. But anyway, am I getting that right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's saying that
yeah,
a
Yeah.
certain cell. What?
Yeah, it's like the study of resonance frequency and communication through
But it
cells.
sounds like
Through like,
absolute bullshit because
I know
I
I
mean,
studied it for a long time. It's actually very interesting and it makes a lot of sense.
okay, well let's keep going. I'll keep going with an open mind. Do you want to read the history there, then, Isaac?
I can give it a go.
Yeah.
I'm not good at history reading. I feel like my mind gets jumbled, but I could read. So if you want,
Yeah.
all right. The concept of the morphogenetic field was first introduced in 1910 by Alexander G. Gurwitz. Experimental support was provided by Ross Granville Harrison's experiments transplanting fragments of a newt embryo into different locations. Harrison was able to identify fields of cells producing organs to such limbs, tail, and gills, and to show that these fields could be fragmented and have undifferentiated cells added, and a complete normal final structure will still result. It will thus considered that it was the field of cells rather than individual cells that were patterned for subsequent development of
Okay.
particular organs. That makes sense.
Right, guys. I think this is bunkum, to be honest with you, in biology. It says this decline of the concept. I went on to the end. In 2005, Sean B. Carroll and colleagues mentioned morphogenetic fields merely as a concept proposed by early embryologists to explain the finding that a four-limb bud could be transplanted and still give rise to a forelimb. They define fields simply as a discrete region in an embryo. So, in terms of modern-day biology, a field is simply a discrete region in an embryo, and the effects of that region on the cells within that region. So there's nothing more to be said about from a biological perspective other than that. It's nothing too amazing. But Seb, you did share kind of the wrong thing. We want to look at morphic fields in the mind. Okay.
okay.
So if you could look up that, I'm going to take your screen away whilst you're looking for that. Have you found it?
Yeah, I'm on the Rupert Sheldrake's Wikipedia.
We lost
page.
Green Soul. If he wants to come back, he's welcome. Have you got it?
Not completely. I'm on Rupert Sheldrake's Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I mean that should more or less bring you there. 1 second. He's a Rupert Sheldrake is a parapsychology researcher. Okay, morphic resonance is what it is. There we go. Which has been okay. Anyway, this is what we want to find: morphic resonance. Okay, let's have a look here.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Okay, yeah, so it is actually his life. So if you go down and you search for morphic resonance, why don't I just share the bit? Anyway, you tell us that the man is there. I'm going to share my screen, okay? This is the man who came up with this. He's 82. And that's him there, Rupert Sheldrake. Okay.
Yeah.
He's an English author and
it sounds similar to my
researcher.
theory. I have a theory that spiritual, like your spirit has memory, and it's like a field. It's an electronic. It's like a
Oh, okay.
magnetic.
Well, we can hear about
Oh.
that in a bit. Thank you, Isaac. So this guy has done a lot of stuff in kind of paranormal, some would say pseudoscience crap. But however, that's his interest, and here we go. Where is the stuff on morphic resonance? There was something on it, surely. Um, hmm. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Sorry for those of you who are watching. If you want to come on here, you're free to do so. But in the meantime, we will try and find morphic resonance. Oh, here we go. Okay, origin and philosophy of morphic resonance. Okay. Among his early influences, Sheldrake cites The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, and a book from 1962 by Thomas Kuhn. He has said that Thomas Kuhn was an American historian and philosopher of science whose 1962 The Structure of Scientific Revolutions was influential in both academic and popular circles. Okay, introducing the term paradigm shift, which has since become an English cliche, I would say. He has said the book led him to the view. This is Sheldrake. Sheldrake has said that the book led him to view contemporary scientific understanding of life as simply a paradigm, which he called the mechanistic theory of life. Okay. Reading Kuhn's work, Sheldrake says focused his mind on how scientific paradigms can change. Okay. Sheldrake says that although there are similarities between morphic resonance and Hinduism's Akashic records, he first conceived of the idea while at Cambridge before his travel to India, where he later developed it. Oh, he would say that, wouldn't he? Oh no, well, I'm not saying he's lying. He's probably telling the truth. He attributes the origin of his idea to two influences: his studies of the holistic tradition in biology, and French philosopher Henri Bergson's 1896 book Matter and Memory. He says he took Bergson's concept of memories not being materially embedded in the brain and generalized it to morphic resonance, where memories are not only immaterial, but also under the influence of the collective memories of similar organisms. Whilst his colleagues at Cambridge were not receptive to the idea, Sheldrake found the opposite to be true in India. He recounts his Indian colleagues saying, "There's nothing new in this. It was all known millennia ago to the ancient rishis." Sheldrake thus characterizes morphic resonance as a convergence between Western and Eastern thought, yet found by himself first in Western philosophy. Sheldrake has also noted similarities between morphic resonance and Carl Jung's collective unconscious. Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. It's a very Jungian kind of idea. With regard to collective memories being shared across individuals and the coalescing of particular behaviors through repetition, which Jung called archetypes. But whereas Jung assumed that archetypal forms were transmitted through physical inheritance, Sheldrake attributes collective memories to morphic resonance and rejects any explanation of them involving what he terms mechanistic biology. Lewis Wolpert is one of Sheldrake's critics. He's described morphic resonance as an updated Dreiskian vitalism. Okay, so let's just have a look at Dreiskian vitalism to see what the hell that is. And it's by this bloke, Hans Adolf Eduard Dreisk. Dreisk? 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 I don't know how to say that. Anyway, some German bloke. Born in Prussia, died in Germany. Obviously, Kingdom of Prussia, that was probably part of Germany when he was born. And then it probably became Germany in his lifetime. I don't know. I don't know much about the Prussian Empire. But anyway, let's have a look and see about his vitalism.
Vitalist was as one of the prophets.
No, that was oh yeah. That was maybe that's the prophet's guru. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dreich developed a deep interest in psych, psychical research and parapsychology. In 1931, he published a methodology of parapsychological research, and in 1993, okay, blah, blah, 1933, okay, he published psychical research, okay, the science of the supernormal, okay. I mean, this is all very Jungian, very kind of weirdy Germany kind of stuff that was, oh, you know, it was stuff to be taken seriously at the time because, you know, nobody knew what was going on. These are the kind of the eminent men of the day, I suppose, preempting, you know, Freud and people who had these theories on the mind and what was going on. Oh, have we come much further nowadays? Do we really know what's going on? Do we know what consciousness is? Do we know where memories are stored in the brain? I mean, guys, first of all, this is ultimately saying, right, that there are fields out there, and basically they are where memories are stored. Okay, so when you walk around, your brain can access these fields, or these fields will. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
You can. So your brain will access these fields, or the fields will impose themselves on your brain, and ultimately, you will start thinking things based on what the fields are causing you to think. To me, that sounds like a load of rubbish. It does seem to me that the brain itself is responsible for our thinking solely. And I think this is evidenced in things like trauma to the brain, okay, degenerative diseases of the brain that cause us to lose memory function, okay, even changes to our personality. That says to me that there must be some material cause of our thoughts, of our memories. Um, and it doesn't say to me that it's coming from a field. But then some of these people will say, oh, but the brain is the transmitter. So if you damage the transmitter or the receiver, in this case, then the memories will not be played out properly. And that's why people with brain damage, etc., lose ability to remember things. It's because their brain isn't working as a receiver for the morphic field. So you'll never argue, you'll never win an argument with someone who believes in this stuff. But Seb, what is it you find most unremarkable or kind of stupid about this idea of morphic fields?
It's just that it has a lack of like proper arguments. So it makes so far I haven't heard any arguments of this. I've just heard some statement that there are morphic fields. Everything's information, but then what's even the arguments for it? I don't see any arguments for it at all.
So instead of saying that the memories are coming from, it's almost like the macro is causing the micro rather than the micro causing the macro. You know what I mean? It's like a kind of a reversal of an inversion of our current understanding or our current viewpoint. Okay, that neurons and synapses are doing all the stuff in the brain. It's saying there's something bigger than that causing some kind of weird effect on the small components, parts of our brain to work. Whereas it would seem that these small parts of the brain are causing the big parts of our experience and our body to work. So the normal understanding is that it's the other way around. This is kind of turning on its head, turning it upside down, and I don't see a reason for it. I don't see a reason for it. It's a pity There's not some kind of advocate for it here. But Seb, have you got a good video for us to flick through quickly before I tire off this topic? Anybody
No,
watching believe in telepathy or kind of effects of the brain outside of normal kind of understanding? That would be interesting to hear.
what
Isaac disappeared, by the way. I don't know where Isaac went.
I yeah, so yeah, it just seems like telepathy, like it's impossible. We have all these senses that we observe the world with, and I guess without that, it is just impossible to obtain information without it.
Yeah. Have you got a video we can watch on? Is it Rupert Sheldrake? Is there anything that we can watch, like a short video,
I
maybe
don't
10
know
minutes or
of
so?
any good videos.
Oh, right.
There is the case that when one tries to watch a video, they take forever to get to the point. They barely
Yeah.
make a point, if anything.
Well, that's why I like a kind of a
It's
5-10 minute one. But I'll have a look then if you can't, if you're not able to.
You can have
What's his name again? Rupert Sheldrake.
Rupert Sheldrake.
I didn't remember that. I pulled it from the Morphic field.
No,
Right.
I actually implanted the morphic field of Rupert in you. I manipulated your biology through morphic fields, so you would talk about Rupert
Thank you.
Sheldrake.
So he's got a channel actually, and he's got 102,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
Maybe
interesting.
David Pearce has written about Rupert Sheldrake.
I reckon David Pearce will think it's a load of rubbish. Let's have a look
Yeah.
at this one. Okay, I'll share this in a second. Right, let's go to the present screen. Hello to anybody who's there. Okay. Okay. I've watched this Ian McGilchrist before, but here he is talking about the intersection of consciousness and matter. Okay, I don't even know if this has Rupert in it. Oh no, he is. Rupert's in this video. This might be a good video actually.
Okay. And I'm going to say a little bit about William James and quote from Varieties of Religious Experience. So that might well give you a starting point for your.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Dialogue.
Very good. I like that. Yes.
And I'm going to check up the. I'll check the, but I will basically leave you to it and jump in if I feel this.
Yes, that's fine.
I'm sure you won't be stalling.
No.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit to say about William James, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, they all have that bookshelf.
11:30, just talking, do we?
Yes.
Oh, there's Rupert. Okay, let's see if there's any
Yeah, they
time
all
stuff.
have bookshelves. Don't you find that a little funny? That they all have to be in front of it?
Oh my God, they all read books. It's such a fucking unusual thing. You ready?
Yeah.
Yes, so you've got a long conversation, proper conversation. Excellent.
Very nice. Yes.
Let's go then.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh yeah, finally, someone who didn't feel the need to be in front of the bookshelf.
Coming in.
Oh,
that's refreshing.
Yeah, that's it. Welcome everyone to day 2 of the 2023 Beyond the Brain conference on further researches of consciousness research. I'm Jerome Bullard, and I'll shortly hand over to David Lorimer, who will introduce Ian and Rupert. And as usual, just to let you know, this is being recorded and you'll get the recordings email later on. And as usual, if you could please just open your chat box and just type in the country or location where you are calling in from. Well, London. Well, it's very fast. England, Norway, Hexham, Kansas. Whoa, Jordan, I thought Nigeria.
Very early start for our US people. California, my God, it's about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, the small talk, of course.
Read widely and deeply all their lives, and their libraries are pretty impressive. I have a fairly impressive library as well. So between us, I think we span a considerable range. And so I'm going to hand over to you, Ian and Rupert. And I think, Ian, you were going to open the batting, as it were.
Okay. Yes, that's good. Yes. I should refer to Schopenhauer's view that never read books. Reading books is for people who've got no ideas of their own. But anyway,
can we spotlight Ian, please, and Rupert? Just wait till Rupert appears on the screen.
There
That's
we are.
It.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I'm speaking from the bedroom of the daughter of a friend in a flat in London. Yes, it's hard to get my I feel so much that I belong where I live that it's quite hard to sort of reconstitute my mental world here for the moment. But I think what I want to say is that I've become more and more convinced that none of the things that we desperately need to do to solve the various problems that we face and that we talk about a great deal, none of this in the end will matter unless we are able to get back to the spiritual ground of our being. And in other words, we could, by some sort of a miracle, we could reverse the pollution of the seas. We could perhaps do something to at least slow climate change. We could make it harder for people to carry on felling ancient forests. All this I believe in powerfully, but I also think that none of it will add up to a hill of beans unless we re-engage with the spiritual basis of a human life. I don't think we any longer know what it is to be a human being. I think people haven't the foggiest idea what they're doing here, what the cosmos in which they come into being is like, and what their relationship with the earth that is their home is like. And I'm just going to say a few things, Rupert, and then ask you to respond to them, really. In the new book I wrote, The Matter with Things, I suggest, first of all, that many of the ways in which we look at the constitution of the cosmos are upside down or back to front. So in other words, we tend to think, for example, that first of all there are things and then there are relations between them, some of which we make in our minds, and that's the way it is. Whereas I argue throughout a very long book that, in fact, relations are absolutely primary. There is nothing that truly exists that is not a relation and is not, in fact, in process, as Whitehead pointed out. So, in other words, relations and processes are primary, not status and things. And I also believe that, for example, it's not that there's literal truth, and that's really the important thing. And metaphorical truths are just some kind of semi-imaginary extension of literal truth. In fact, I believe that all fundamental truths are metaphorical in nature, and that literal truth is just a very special kind that we've invented to describe a small subset of things that occur at a very everyday level. But for the purposes of what we're talking about now, I want to suggest that it's not that somehow there is inanimacy, and then there is life, and then there is consciousness, and then there is a sense of the great values, goodness, beauty, truth, and the sacred. I think it's the other way around, that what actually exists fundamentally is a consciousness, which is a field of consciousness, which is divine, which has the qualities of attending to and drawing us towards goodness, beauty, and truth. And
okay, so this guy he believes in this field of consciousness as well. I mean, I like listening to this guy occasionally. Well, I'm not an avid fan or anything, but he does pop up on the algorithm now and again. He is an interesting guy to listen to. He has an interesting views on the hemispheres of the brain, and he does a lot of talk about that actually, and how the different kind of sizes in the hemispheres and the kind of asymmetry of them have some effect on us as thinkers and as spiritual beings, in his view. But an interesting guy to look up, Dr. Ian McGilchrist. But yeah, let's keep going.
The sense of the holy and sacred, and that it's for this that we've developed our complexity as human beings, since we are not better than animals, but we are, in this sense, above them, that we can hope to respond to receive, to resonate with, and to give a full and fulfilling response to those leading values that draw us forward. So that's the way I would like to think of it, Rupert. What would you say to that?
Well, I think of it in a very similar way, and so do most people in the world, for that matter. If you actually look at, we live in a particularly godless part of the world, Western Europe.
Yes.
But it's not quite the same if you go to Africa or India, or many other parts of the world, or Iraq, or Iran, or the Middle East. Most people are religious in the world, and this kind of secularist, secular humanist, atheist tinted culture that we have is a historical anomaly. Most people were religious in Europe, as Charles Taylor in his wonderful book, A Secular Age, points out. In the year 1500 in Europe, everyone believed in God. Everyone believed in the kind of vision you've just put forward. It was almost impossible not because people were coerced into believing that, but because...
Doesn't mean it was true, though, does it? Doesn't mean they were right to believe. Just because everybody does something doesn't mean that it's true. But anyway,
there was just no credible alternative. And what's happened is, through the growth of through the Protestant Reformation and the disenchantment of the world that happened in part through the Protestant Reformation, a lack of emphasis on nature, a focus entirely on human consciousness, and then through the scientific revolution, the mechanistic materialist worldview that's grown out of it, we now have this very secular world where people think that evolution and life starts from the bottom up, from genes and molecules and cells, and everything builds up until you've got big enough brains where the light of consciousness mysteriously comes on.
So yeah, he's basically talking about that then. Everyone thinks nowadays it's from the bottom up, but he's trying to show it's the other way around. It's from the top down. It's from the big expanse to the small. I suppose it's from God to us. It's the divine creating the little ants, aka humans. I'm not saying I believe that, but this is what this dude is saying, along with the other dude, the doctor dude. I mean, they're both doctors, so that doesn't mean anything, but I think they both got PhDs and some kind of this or that, something that gives them apparent credibility in their little echo chambers that they like to walk around in. Let's keep going, shall we?
And then we start thinking about bigger things like God, but they're all just inventions inside our own minds and hence inside our own brains. And you'd be able to tell us exactly where.
No, I wouldn't, Rupert. No.
That, I mean, this what both you and I are discussing, and what, in fact, the whole scientific medical network has been concerned with right from the start, is, you know, trying to find a way back to a worldview that is still consonant with science, because science isn't going to go away, and we've learned a great many things about nature through the scientific process. But to recover a sense of this connection, which is actually there in all traditions. I mean, shamanic traditions all admit that there's, or all just assume that there's some realm. They have different views of it, but there are.
What do you think, Seb, so far, these two gentlemen talking?
It's a jolly good show.
Jolly good, haha. Okay.
Realms beyond our own, that what we see is not all there is.
Indeed.
And as my main teacher, Father Bede Griffiths, used to point out, that, you know, the center of all religious and spiritual culture is a direct experience of our minds, our consciousness being part of something vastly greater than ourselves. And as he pointed out, all religions start from that experience. It's not a dogma, it's an experience. And then they interpret it. I mean, his favorite metaphor was the hand, and, you know, that sort of central experience of unity is like the palm of the hand, and then it's interpreted in different cultures, in different traditions, different languages. They're like the fingers of the hand, all the different interpretations of this primary unitive experience, this sense of ultimate unity, which are interpreted in all these different cultural ways. But that is the central foundation of all these religious traditions. And as far as we know, this intuition that we're part of something greater than ourselves is very ancient. I mean, all these cave paintings from 20, 30, 40,000 years ago, the practice of burying the dead and so on, or dealing with the dead in a ritual way, all these things suggest that this has been part of human consciousness for a very, very long time. No doubt the forms have changed, and the development of the great religions has sort of put a more unifying aspect on these insights. But it seems to me that it's been foundational to human life throughout almost all human history, with the brief anomaly of Western Europe and parts of North America in the last 150 years.
Yes, of course. And it is worth reflecting on the fact that it would be entirely irrational to suppose that we were aware of everything in the cosmos. Why on earth would we? I mean, we know in the very simplest level that there are sounds that we can't hear, but that bears and bats can hear. So what we know is limited by our senses and by the relative unsophistication of our brains. I say relative because relative to what there is for us to approach. If one has any kind of sense of imagination, one can see that things that we sense are there, and that, as you say, throughout the world people have believed are there. This is not irrational. This is a very reasonable supposition. And there are people in, for example, Australia, the native people there, who say they can hear and see things at a distance. They can hear people, ancestors speaking to them. And who are we, frankly, to say that they don't hear those things? I like I'm sure you would agree, the very important idea of Goethe's, that we develop senses to perceive things in response to the bits of experience that we are able to get, and that therefore, if we don't actually allow ourselves to experience certain things, then an organ that we might have will atrophy. And I suggest that we've allowed organs that would help us to see these things and hear these things and know these things, we've allowed them to atrophy, and that people that we can.
Synaptic pruning again, Seb. Your favorite topic?
Well, I only mentioned it. It's not like I'm not obsessed with
I was
synaptic.
joking. I'm joking. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But he's saying if we don't use our brains, they will atrophy. You know, the parts of them that we don't use. So that's what happened to me.
Consider more primitive than us, and indeed our own children, up to an age before they're told that it's not wise or intelligent to say that you see these things of you're fantasizing. I mean, these people have the organs of perception that we need in order to reach the divine, or to have any inklings of it. And I suppose that we all have enough of an inkling of that unless we shut it down, we can follow it, and one hopes to grow it. You know, Keats called this world a veil of soul making. And in other words, we are nourishing or stunting the soul by the way in which we live.
Yes, well, I think the one way of looking at it is Charles Taylor suggests that in Europe, in say up until 1500 or later, people had the idea that minds are porous. Porosity is a word he uses, and the anthropologist Tanya Luhrmann, who's at Stanford, is, I think, one of the most interesting anthropologists of religion writing at the moment. And in her latest paper, she talks about porosity. In all religions, it's assumed that our minds are porous to influences from each other, influences from spirits, gods, angels, other beings, that our minds are porous. And what Charles Taylor shows is that since the 17th century, there's been this shutting down. So the idea we've ended up with is our minds are completely insulated inside the privacy of our skulls. They're nothing but the electrical activity of our brains or other activities of the brains inside our heads. And they're all separated off from everything else. They're completely privatized. And what Tanya Luhrmann shows is that she wrote her most recent book is called How God Becomes Real. And the previous one was called How God Talks Back. And she's done anthropological studies of charismatic Christians, evangelical groups, women praying in Tehran, Muslim women praying in Tehran, shamanic cultures, and so forth. She's done, and she shows that in all these traditions, there's the idea that we're open to spirits or beings of other kinds. But she also points out that this is actually something that requires a cultural reinforcement and effort on our part. If you believe in God, it's not just a kind of passive belief, but people who believe in God pray, they go to temples, churches, services, they meet with others, they pray together, they have annual ceremonies, rituals, practices, etc. There's a lot of work goes into making these beliefs more apparent and more directly experienced. And I think something similar happens with people who have to put in quite a lot of work to maintain the secular worldview, to maintain a secular atheist worldview. Denying all these things involves quite a lot of work, hard work on denial. You first of all have to deny all your own telepathic experiences, and 85% of people have these experiences with telepathic telephone calls. You have to deny that you can really tell when someone's staring at you from behind, and 95% of people have experienced that. You have to deny that you have flashes of insight or mystical experience that appear to connect you with a consciousness greater than your own. If you take psychedelics, which give a wonderful sense of connection with something greater than yourself, you have to deny that that's real. But you just have to say, well, that's just because chemical disturbances inside the brain. So even atheism and secularism require quite a lot of effort.
They do.
In denial. And the motive for the denial, I suppose, is fitting in with the secular world. And what the only positive side of it all is a self-congratulatory feeling you're smarter than everyone else because you've seen through all these false beliefs and childish attitudes that children have and so-called primitive people do. And when you were reading the varieties of religious experience at school, I had a housemaster who he was tried to show me the limitations of the Orthodox Christianity in which the school chapel, we all had to go there every day. And I was reading bits of J.G. Fraser's The Golden Bough and Robert Greaves' White Goddess.
Oh, yes, indeed.
His aim was to prove to me that Christianity was no better than these primitive, superstitious beliefs found all over the world. And since we were quite happy to dismiss all of them as mumbo jumbo, the same applied to Christianity. It was no better than them. And at first I was persuaded. I thought this was an appalling weakness because it presumed to be superior to these other beliefs. And I've later come to see this as tremendous strength, that it has so much in common with myths and archetypal patterns found all over the world. But the idea that we're smarter than others, I mean, Fraser and all those late 19th century figures, early 20th century figures, had the view that we've risen above the sort of animistic superstition, and then you get religion, which is a bit better, not much better. And then you go beyond that to science, and then you realize all that stuff, basically childish rubbish we've grown out of. So I think that that's how we've got here. And I think it does take quite a lot of effort, as I say, for people to maintain that belief. And I suppose that
how are you,
some of this, I'm just guessing, onto activities of different parts of the brain.
How are you doing? I'm just checking in with you. Are you still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're jolly nice to listen to, these two. I mean, you would enjoy talking to them in real life. I would.
Yeah, I could even fall asleep listening to this. It's, no wonder he has like a big following.
Yeah.
I
mean, they're very enthusiastic, and it's pleasant listening. I'm not saying it's all true or whatever, but it is pleasant to listen to. So thank you to these two gentlemen.
Like I said, it's a jolly good show.
Aye. Okay.
And unlike the stream,
yes, maybe. I mean, before we go,
sorry.
And unlike the stream, they're not trying to reveal facts about reality that is distressing. They're trying to tell this feel-good story about interconnectedness.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Seth.
Go there though. You raised a number of you raised a number of interesting points. I argue also in my chapter 28 of The Matter with Things and the Sense of the Sacred, from evidence given by psychological studies, that actually it takes more effort to deny. It's not true that, as Dawkins suggests, that we are indoctrinated into religion. In fact, it's the opposite, that it takes more cognitive effort to inhibit these ideas. That doesn't mean that they're wrong, of course, but it is interesting that if you have people, and maybe that is to do with the brain, that some people, especially people with autism, and who are something like 10 times more likely to be atheistic, the normal brain is actually allowing us to, if we will not suppress it, to experience the sort of things that you're talking about. And going back to my idea that the things that we think are primary are not, and the things that we think are secondary are not. So in the case of oneness, you were talking about how we have to, go back to an idea of being porous. But this is as you're suggesting, I think this is the natural state, to see ourselves as in connection with the world. And you get in panpsychism a very interesting phenomenon, which is that people say, okay, so how do we, okay, maybe the logical position, since we can't see how to get consciousness out of mere lumpen matter, maybe the answer is everything's got consciousness in it. But then how do we recompose it? You know, how do we put this together? It's actually called the combination problem. This is typical of the left hemisphere, which having, first of all, ruptured a unity, then doesn't know how to, quote, recreate the unity. But the unity is there. The unity is primary. Not a secondary phenomenon that has to be put together and achieved. So I think that kind of panpsychism is somewhat irrational and left hemisphere dominated. Now, you've brought me to the position where, of course, I've mentioned hemispheres. and I should say to anybody listening that my position is not that the brain creates our experience at all. I say that logically there are three possibilities. The brain either emits experience, or it transmits experience, or it permits experience. And I believe that, in fact, the brain is a permitter of experience that shapes it, much as the vocal cords, as William James pointed out, are what shape his voice. A restriction, a constriction, an inhibition, a negation, some kind of molding or no saying to the breath that would come through. If there was no such molding or permitting, then there would be no voice at all. But coming to the boring stuff about brain correlates, we do know that, I'm afraid it just is a matter of fact, and I think it's Appendix 7 or something in the matter with things. I do go over the science on hemisphere difference in spirituality in relation to mindfulness, meditation in general.
I'm just going to fast forward a bit, see, does he get into more fields or
contacted a realm, a reality, which is more real, more certain in a way than the ordinary world we live in. And they don't have any doubt that there's this spiritual reality because they've directly experienced it. Now, I don't know to what extent that depends on one or both hemispheres, or whether it goes beyond the brain or form of prayer. I mean, basic found all over the world. Well, personally, I see that as more the role of meditation. I mean, there are various, and then clusters of galaxies, and then
the thing in the mind of the creator, or is it
the words I'm saying?
This is what Rumi said in one of his meditations, that the spirit is the well spring, it is the cup that conveys the water, and it is the water that quenches the thirst of those who are thirsty. So I just thought I'd throw that in, because I think it's one way of making panpsychism a much more interesting phenomenon and much closer to panentheism.
I agree. I think that the best model of ultimate reality is Trinitarian, and we find it in many different traditions. As my favorite book on this is David Bentley Hart's book, The Experience of God, Being Consciousness Bliss, where he shows that an Indian model, Sat Chit Ananda, is one way of looking at this. I mean, Sat is the ground of all being, that which sustains all things, all being. And Chit is consciousness, which is contains names and forms, nama rupa, names and forms, that the contents of consciousness is consciousness about things, and these names and forms, it's roughly what Plato called, the Platonic realm of ideas. in the Christian Trinity as the Logos. And then Ananda, joy or bliss, that the divine consciousness is blissful, which is why mystical experiences of union with God are usually blissful, because the divine consciousness is blissful. Now, in the Christian model, where we have God the Father as the ground of being and the Logos as the second person of the Trinity, the names and forms which give form, shape, structure, coherence to everything, which underlie the order and form of the world, and also the order and form of our minds, which is why the traditional view is why we can understand nature, is because they have a common source, our minds and the natural world. And then the Holy Spirit, which is the dynamical, moving principle.
Yeah. I mean, it all sounds so highbrow, but it's kind of woo-woo and not really grounded in anything, isn't it, Seb?
Yes, that's right. It's not. They don't.
Opinion.
What sort of? They all seem to like pull stuff out of thin air. A lot of concepts.
Or as they would say, from the morphic field. But
and I
you
think
know,
what I think. So I think how they are able to get away with it is because a lot of people who listen to it don't really question what they're saying, and they don't check where
I don't know. I don't question their. I think they believe it as well. I think they're really they really believe these things, you know. But you know, they're in touch with something perhaps that I'm not. Perhaps I don't know. They're giving credence to something that I've sullied in my outlook. You know, but you know, it's good to be open-minded, but just not too open that you go completely insane. But you know, I try to retain some good faith, open-mindedness on this stream, and because I don't know what's going on, so maybe someone else does.
You say you can't say
Sorry?
you don't know what's going on and say that morphic field is rubbish. Wouldn't that be a contradiction?
Yeah, that's why I did the stream, because I don't know what's going on, so I'm letting people try and tell me. But I'm not convinced by this effort at explaining this kind of hidden field of subconscious thought, this overwhelming union of a subconscious universal mind that is somehow shaping our experience. I'm not convinced. You know,
Even
I
if
mean,
that
there's no.
was true, that would be a little horrifying.
Yeah, how would you feel if you found out it was true, Seth?
Yeah, I would prefer that it wasn't true. A universal mind that would pose like some sort of reincarnation threat. And there
Well,
could be.
he hasn't said that that's a fact yet.
I don't know, universal mind, wouldn't that it might entail that, wouldn't it? Not that it does, but maybe it would.
Right, Seb, I'm going to play another one here now, if you bear with me.
Yeah. So furthermore, if that was true, there could be a lot of existential crises related to that, right? Since I'm not, I guess the people on here are, I wouldn't say we're prone to existential crises necessarily, since it's kind of an old fact that already has been established that we've gotten used to. But if we were given new information, then all of a sudden it could arise new existential crises that we haven't gotten used to, that we haven't gotten the time to adjust.
All right, let's press play here, Seb. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Morphic resonance is a connection across time from the past to the present. And it's a process that occurs between organized patterns of activity on the basis of similarity. What it means, in effect, is that each species has a kind of collective memory. So every giraffe tunes in by morphic resonance to the form and to the...
I've already seen a problem here. He's saying every species has a collective memory, so that a giraffe tunes into the collective memory of a giraffe. But you know, there's this kind of thing where sometimes there's near relatives. Okay, they're not quite the same species. They're kind of like they're from a common ancestor, but they're not the same species. Where does it break? Is there some like kind of family tree of memory that, you know? So the, say for example, the bonobo is apparently a different species. Are bonobos and chimpanzees the same species? Actually, maybe that's a bad example. They're just different types of chimpanzee. I think they're viewed as different types. That different types of chimpanzee, are they, or are they distinct species?
I've never heard of a bonobo and a chimpanzee that has produced offspring. But if they can produce offspring, that
can a bonobo and a chimpanzee shag?
Probably.
And have a baby.
I don't know, but the baby has to produce an offspring in order for it.
I know
to
that
be
bonobos are matriarchal and
species.
chimpanzees are patriarchal. Let's have a look. I'm just looking it up here.
Yeah, but
there is no evidence of hybridization between bonobos and chimpanzees. Okay. However, there is. They can do it in captivities. Okay. Okay, so they're different species, but they can shag in clinical settings.
If someone looks through your search history, they would be very concerned.
Yeah, well, this is so basically what I'm trying to say is, what happens when a new species evolves? You know, where's their fucking collective memory? But I know what he's going to say. He's going to come up with, oh well, you see, they're going out into a new frontier and they're exploring and they are developing a new morphic resonance that will be utilized by their descendants. They are at the frontier. They are influenced by what was before, of course, but they are forging a new morphic resonance for the new species that they are a part of. I mean, he's going to have an answer for it, but let's keep going.
Yeah.
Behavior of previous giraffes, bimorphic resonance to the form and to the behavior of previous giraffes. Every crystal, as it crystallizes, tunes in to the way that previous crystals of the same chemical crystallized in the past. So there's a kind of memory given.
Yeah, I mean, this fucking thing here, like crystals are tuning in to a memory of a fucking. Oh, a crystal is tuning into. How the fuck will I react to a volcanic eruption so that I form, you know, a pattern or shape, you know, that is what I'm meant to be. I mean, it's got nothing to do with the fucking heat, the fucking temperature, the fucking, you know, the deposits around it. No, it's the fucking crystal tuning into a frequency to fucking see what the fuck it should do.
Yeah, but
oh my!
What else would it be? Are you crazy that the heat and elements of nature has something to do with it? Are you out of your
Say
mind?
that again.
Of course.
This is worse than Ephilism 2.0.
But are you out of your mind? Of course, the elements of nature, such as the heat and the coldness and water, that doesn't mold things. The physical things doesn't do it. It's this unexplained thing called the morphic resonance that doesn't have arguments. That does it. Didn't you know that?
He can't prove. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, not only so there is an element of panpsychism. Then it's like it's not just biological beings. It's fucking inanimate fucking material that fucking has this morphic resonance as well. So
They're crazy.
fields in this man's view are causing granite to be granite, diamonds to be diamonds. You know, fucking
Yeah.
whatever sedimentary rock you want to talk about. It's all being caused by morphic resonance.
Then where the hell does it come from? And
Where does the
what
morphic
does it
resonance come from? That's a good question. We actually didn't establish that, but I think in his view that is the kind of divinity of it all. That's the god. That's the kind of Spinozan kind of overseer, the power behind the universe. Everything is God. It's just manifesting through the morphic resonance.
Amazing.
Absolutely gobsmacking, you know, as you say, amazing. And yeah, my morphic resonance isn't doing much for me at the moment, but I'm hoping it will improve soon. I don't know what fucking morphic resonance I'm tuned into, but it's not doing me much fucking good.
By morphic resonance in all kinds of things. And in the realm of animal behavior, for example, it leads to quite striking predictions. If rats learn a new trick here in London, then rats all around the world should be able to learn the same trick quicker, just because the rats have learned it here. The more that learn it, the easier it should get everywhere else. And there's already evidence that this actually happens from studies of rats in laboratories. When lots of rats have learned something, other rats all around the world find it easier to learn. And this doesn't depend on any normal kind of connection between the different rats or the places.
I mean, he says there's lots of evidence, but he doesn't give any. He just fucking says it.
Yeah, that's right. It's like he's praying. Maybe I shouldn't use the word praying, but he's praying on the viewer, giving up on looking for the evidence or something. It's like it's almost as if he uses a specific strategy like that, like praying that the viewer gives up on trying to reason with it.
Praying that the viewer won't practice due diligence. What we'll do then is we will look up a critique of morphic resonance, okay, after this guy's finished jabbering about it, yeah.
But I find it
happens because
interesting
of
how much of a gibberish it really is.
Yeah, I find it interesting that this man has come up with it and has based his whole career on it, you know, and is so completely wedded to it, you know. I find it really interesting that people do that. And they're highly respect. I'm not saying he shouldn't. Well, he's a respected member of society. He's 102,000 people following him on YouTube. He's a successful author. You know, people read his books. The guy's is obviously making a few shillings out of this. I mean, he's bought his home probably based on this. And yeah, why can't I come up with an unprovable theory that I can make, you know, universally or try to make universally accepted? I'm not saying this is universally accepted. Why can't I push out something there to get a little segment of the mass market, you know, like this man's done?
Yeah, maybe
why can't I just
pull out something from the Gnosis or something, or maybe you can have your own version of the morphic resonance.
Okay, well, Chickpea is sold. She seems to think that he's onto something. She says, have you heard about what he's talking about? This weird thing does actually seem to happen. So Chickpea, you can come on here and tell us about that, please. Sorry, Seb, go ahead. I'm going to press play on his video in a moment.
Since you always have something pessimistic to say about every single thing ever in reality that has ever happened, what sort of pessimistic conclusions could be drawn out of this if this was true?
Not only is reality deterministic from the micro, it's also deterministic from the macro. So not only is it deterministic from the small going up, it's also deterministic from the big going down to the small. And here we are, four conscious beings stuck in the middle of two deterministic forces, squashing the fucking experience out of us all. Is that good enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll press play now.
Between the different rats or the places, it happens because of morphic resonance on the basis of similarity. The same applies to crystals. When a new chemical is made for the first time, it's usually very hard to crystallize it. And as time goes on, it gets easier to crystallize all around the world. And I think the reason for this is that morphic resonance connects up the crystals so they tune into a kind of collective memory. Morphic resonance works through morphic fields, the organizing fields of chemicals and biological systems. And the word morphic comes from the Greek word for form. So it's a kind of resonance to do with form, pattern, and organization.
He looks so conceited there. He looks so happy. He's not really smirking, but he definitely has this like look of a man who's grinning on the inside there. Look at that face. I can't believe I got away with saying all that so eloquently with my articulate ways, and I can't believe you didn't say, "What the fuck are you talking about, sir?" Okay, let's go on to another one.
Yeah, it looks
what
like
do
that
skeptics say about your work?
That cartoon dog that was, I don't know, remember, but the Barbara cartoon of the detective, the dog, whatever that was called.
Okay, well, we'll press play on this one now. This is him talking about what skeptics say about his work, and we will actually maybe go and look at what the skeptics say. By the way, Rupert, I'm not throwing any shade on your work. If you want to come on here and talk about it, you're most welcome, Mr. Rupert Sheldrake, or should I call you Dr. Rupert Sheldrake?
My own research is controversial. The idea of morphic resonance and memory in nature is unfamiliar to many scientists, and it's not the way they usually think. And the research I do on unexplained phenomena of animals and people, including and the sense of direction in animals and in people, breaks certain taboos within the scientific world. So some skeptics are very opposed to what I do. They dismiss it as pseudoscience because it doesn't fit in the ordinary mainstream science research program. Others say that it must be flawed, and they make a lot of dismissive remarks. But I've actually had public debates with quite a lot of my critics and anyone who wants.
And the thing is, nobody really knew what the fuck you're talking about, and but you say it so well that in your own. He's a man who won in his own mind, and you can't defeat someone who thinks they've won. If they think they've won, that's all that matters, because you can't defeat someone who thinks they've won, no matter what empirical science says. If you think you're right, nothing's going to stop you from thinking that. Okay, only yourself, only your own ability to say, yeah, maybe I should go and think about this again. Maybe I should go and do my homework and come back with a better plan, a better description of what I think. Maybe I shouldn't just put it out there, even if I am very eloquent, very articulate. Maybe I should, take a few steps back and have a deeper think about this. What are the ramifications of what I'm saying? What is the proof? Why am I saying this out in public? Why am I doing this? You should question why you're doing it, first of all, how you're doing it, the quality of your work, and the proof of it. I mean, we'll go into what these skeptics are saying. I don't think he's giving the full story, because from my cursory glance, of matters, I did see that people were rather scathing of his supposed experiments that he used as proof of morphic resonance, they were scathing. They said they were not done to a standard expected by modern day science, and they were not such that they were, able to be easily done again in different settings. Okay, so they were kind of a sham, really, in terms of what experimental methodology is meant to be. It's meant to be easily replicable in another clinical setting, but it appears it wasn't so. But we will look into that later. We will give this man his due. We will look into it further. Again, I don't want to knock him off his perch unduly. We'll keep going in good faith. Take it away, Rupert Sheldrake.
To hear them can hear them for themselves on the internet. And what's come out over and over and over again is that they're actually not interested in the evidence. They're so sure they're right that the evidence is irrelevant.
It sounds like he's projecting there. I mean, that's literally what I'd say about Rupert Sheldrake, sorry.
It's irrelevant.
Are you there, Seb?
Yeah.
This is literally, he's talking about his critics, but I would literally say these words are applicable to him.
Is irrelevant.
You ready?
That the evidence is irrelevant.
Oh, hold on a second.
In the evidence. And what's come out over and over and over again is that they're actually not interested in the evidence. They're so sure they're right that the evidence is irrelevant.
I mean, you've got to say, this man, he may not be a genius in terms of his effort to convey morphic resonance, but he is a genius in being able to turn the tables. In many ways, his theory is turning the tables. It's saying that the macro is causing the micro, and here he is saying that that which his critics are accusing him of is actually what they're doing. This is the yin and yang of reality, folks. This is why it's a hellscape reality, because, the truth is subjective, but it appears that some people are so far removed from the objective truth that, they're floating out there somewhere far, far away in their own little world, and there's not much you can do about it. You can't bring them back because either they're willfully there and they want to stay there, or they just don't have the mental apparatus to think about things, and it's not their fault. Now, I'm not saying this man is wrong. I haven't delved into it, but I'm not convinced. Not convinced at all. But we will continue in good faith, Dr. Sheldrake, to analyze your work. So, Vegan Equilibrium, first of all, came in here and said, load of bollocks. That's some choice language there. Strong stuff. And he also says that some people are so unsatisfied with real science that they have to delude themselves. So, by the way, Vegan Equilibrium has become a hardcore empiricist. He wants facts and figures. He wants evidence. He wants experiments to show what you're talking about. He wants you to cite your sources. And yeah, he's entitled to do that. So, Seb, we'll keep playing. Have you got anything to add at this juncture, Seb?
And anything? Yeah, it's also. I guess it could be the case that he doesn't believe in it himself. I guess, but
he could be trying to sell books. Is that what you mean?
No, maybe he does.
Say that about the man. I'm not going to say that about him. I'm not going to say that about him at all. But that is a problem. But we all need to make money, you see. And the problem with making money is it does corrupt people sometimes. And sometimes people say things to sell books. But I'm not saying that he is of this persuasion. I would say I do believe this man believes this stuff, okay? And as I say, I am waiting to be shaken to my core with an astounding, presentation from him to show exactly what is going on. But as of yet, hasn't happened for me. But that's not to say it hasn't happened for someone else. maybe someone else truly believes in the stuff and has found it to be of a validity that I am not seeing. Okay. So Vegan Equilibrium says, if he could somehow connect this to the lady in the sky, the 666 barcode, as prophesied in the Bible, then I'd take him more seriously. Well, Vegan Equilibrium, it just so happens Chickpea is on now, and she's the lady that brought that up last time. Hello, Chickpea. Chickpea, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
By the way,
what you're talking about is called one. All right.
Sorry, we lost you. Can you say that again?
It's 100 monkey syndrome.
Oh, that's a very rude euphemism.
No, it's what
but
yeah, what back in the 50s. Back in the 50s.
Tell us about it.
Different on. Hold on.
Chickpea, you're coming out very intermittently. I'm going to press play on this video while you try and sort out your microphone.
So this isn't really proper skepticism. This is a kind of dogmatic dismissal.
By the way, just as an aside, what is he blurring out in this bottom right-hand corner of the screen?
It's obvious that the camera is capturing thing that the focus isn't what is near the camera. I guess it's for some sort of aesthetic effect.
It is for an aesthetic effect, but I think it's a pretty crap one actually. But anyway, that's just an aside. I mean, it's a shame really, because you know the rest of the film is quite pleasant. I mean the background, the mirror.
Oh, I noticed that too.
Yeah,
the mirror is positioned to show the bookshelf behind the camera. That's a genius.
Maybe it's the morphic resonance appearing in the film. Maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe the whole screen will be taken over by this blurry kind of effects in a moment as the morphic resonance overtakes the video and gives us 100% proof of its existence. Let's go.
And it's not really very scientific.
Couldn't you have a mirror within the mirror showing another bookshelf, and so on and so on?
Yes. All right, Seb, I'm going to press play.
Dismissal. And it's not really very scientific. So anyone who hears skeptics making remarks really needs to ask, where's the skeptic coming from? Is it from a dogmatic position, or is it from a genuinely open-minded position looking at the evidence? And of course, looking at the evidence, being in an open-minded way, is very important. It's part of science. It's what we need. It's healthy. It's normal. But the dogmatic dismissal of anything that doesn't fit in with what one believes is really a kind of fundamentalism. And I think it holds back.
Well, he is right about that, but I mean, he is using it as a kind of get out of jail card to like write off his skeptics without addressing them properly. I mean, he didn't really address his skeptics at all. He just says, you know, he said they're just skeptical about his work, but he didn't say he didn't address why their skepticism is isn't required. You know, but anyway,
back science rather than leads it forward.
More blurriness. So it did actually go blurry. Okay. Right. Well, that was that.
I guess I could talk about one other topic.
No, well, if you could, finally, let's fucking watch the skeptics of morphic resonance, and then we'll leave this aside. I mean, if we're going to do something, we'll try and do it right. I'm not saying we will do it right, because this is my podcast or my show. Sorry. So I'm not going to be egotistical enough to say I could do anything right. Well, I'm going to try to do fucking life.
They don't really make it easy, the believers in that. They don't make it easy for those who are open-minded and want to learn more. If they had presented very easy, digestible like arguments. Then we at least we have some stuff to think about, right? But it seems like they are just taking forever to or they are or in the videos I've seen there was very little arguments for the existence of morphic fields. So it seems like Rupert Sheldrake in the videos, he's just saying several statements. I know that I guess the arguments probably lies in in the in the experiments he did, but
Right.
then I think there was he just interpret. I think he just what- it's interpreted in a way that's kind of skewed in the favor of the morphic fields being true.
All right, here's Terence McKenna, okay, talking about Sheldrake's morphic resonance. Okay, so before we go on to the criticism, we'll listen to this Terence McKenna talking about you. Have you been making? So Chickpea says, "Have you been making changes to your conversation? Blah de blah. Can't work out what to it won't do. I don't know what you're on about there, Chickpea. Sorry, darling." Well, let's just present the screen again, and we'll have a watch of this one. Terence McKenna, no less. It's big and
paragraph of the presence of the past, Rupert condenses the theory into a slogan which could be shouted in a theater or a parade. It's that things are as they are because they were as they were. And that, in essence, is what this theory is saying. Well, now notice that this is as conservative a point of view as one could possibly imagine. What is being proposed in the theory of the morphogenetic is a revisioning of causality. The second book, which if you haven't read it, you're certainly missing an intellectual adventure. It's like a chance to read the Principia when the person who wrote it is striding around town giving lectures. It's really a rare intellectual adventure. I haven't known that kind of excitement reading theoretical biology since discovering L.L. White when I was a kid. But what is being proposed is a fundamental revisioning of how events happen in the world, and very fundamental to the performance of science is the notion of experiment. And experiment rests on the relatively unexamined concept of the restoration of initial conditions. Well, the Sheldrakean cosmos would play havoc with the notion of the restoration of initial conditions, because what it is saying is that the universe is a steadily accreting and self-defining set of interlocking habits, and that that slices into
How do they fill out amphitheaters saying this stuff? You know, how do they sell books? A plus B equals C, and they say that C is not equal to C because A plus B caused it. C is equal to C merely because C exists, and in C existing, it is either breaking new frontiers or it is following in the footsteps of a previous C. And because a previous C was there before, that C is sending out a morphic resonance to define what it is to be C and imposing that value system on other forms of universe, and they come out as a C in some way or other. And yeah, I mean, it's just depressing, really, isn't it, Seb? Really, it's actually quite depressing how any of this is extremely popular. I don't know what to say, really. I mean, sometimes I'm guilty of a little bit of speculation, but this takes the biscuit, mate. This takes the fucking biscuit. You know what I mean? I'm definitely guilty of imaginative speculation, unprovable fucking statements, you know. But, you know, at least I admit it. I don't fucking, you know, hang my hat on it and say, hey, this is something, you know. I can say perhaps, you know, this is a hypothesis. This is something that could be the case. Now, I always say, in sometimes on my theories of existence, they're unprovable, yeah. But I will say they're just theories, they're not something that is actually happening. But these guys seem to have it all figured out from nothing, and they offer nothing as way of evidence.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll press play.
This waveform interference pattern of habit are therefore necessarily going to be time dependent. In other words, it looks different at each point in its history. It makes it very hard, therefore, to see how in an atmosphere like that, ordinary science can be prosecuted at all. So the interest that it holds for me then is that it seems to be a very calm, rational, attentive program of intellectual understanding which leads to the same radical conclusions that an emergence in the core experience of archaism, the psychedelic experience, argues for. In other words, that all our intellectual constructs are in fact built on shifting sands, and all knowledge is provisional at this stage in the epistemic enterprise. It doesn't mean that a more epistemically grounded knowing is not possible. It merely means that up to this point, it has not occurred. Science's claim to fulfill this function is now in serious trouble. It actually has been in some areas since the elaboration of quantum physics in the 20s, but Sheldrake is coming at it not from a realm of extremely arcane mathematical modeling, but in the biological realm with a model which is both simultaneously true to felt experience and confounding to the scientific paradigm as it has been waged since Bacon, essentially. And perhaps the way in which it plays into the psychedelic issue is that we can take the word habit very generally and realize that one of the curious things about ourselves as higher animals is our susceptibility to habituations. I define habituation as unexamined obsessive behavior. Seems reasonable. And we are, more than any other creature, we seem to...
I mean, seriously, if ever there's a guy who seems to like the sound of his own voice too much, it's that guy. I mean, what the actual fuck? I mean, is it just me, or does he sound extremely creepy? Sounds like a creepy guy. Right, creepy guy. You know, talks through his nose. Nothing wrong with talking through your nose per se, but he does talk through his nose, which I don't particularly find, acoustically pleasing. I'm sorry to any of you nasal mutterers out there, but it's not just that. There's something creepy in the kind of just the way he projects the sounds from his derriere. I mean, as he's talking, I need a shower after that creepy man talking.
I guess you're not a fan of Megadeth.
That's Terence McKenna. I'm sorry, Terence McKenna. I don't know if he's still alive. I think he died. I presume he's dead. Sounds like a man who's dead. Let's look him up. Sounds like he was talking a long time ago. Just from the audio quality there, sounds like a pretty shitty fucking recording. Obviously, I fucking heard the name. American ethnobotanist. Oh, shit, he's still alive. Oh, no, he died. He died in 2000, sorry. We got someone here. Hello, Chickpea.
Hi, I've done it.
Hello, how you doing? You alright? What's going on? What's happening?
I'm not very good with technology.
Well, it's not you that's not very good with it. It's the morphic resonance that is guiding you. Okay. So perhaps it's because your predecessors didn't give a good, memory of what you should be doing. Okay. So don't blame yourself. It's the fuckers before you. Actually, I quite like this idea. I never have to blame myself again for any of my ineptitude and any of my social faux pas. I can say it's the fucking morphic fields doing it again. It's all those cunts that came before me and their ignorance causing me to be a buffoon, Yeah, maybe I can...
sorry.
Oh, Chickpea's gone again. Chickpea, I didn't kick you off. Something happened there.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that regardless of it being true or not? If it's the morphic fields, it's determinism.
What do you mean if it was true? What do you mean if it was true? Of course it's true. Everything I do is being caused by the universal field of objective memory, and it's not my fault. It's not my fault, but I'm fucking up.
Sometimes there are some things that have so little evidence and they sound so absurd that one's head just starts searching from it.
Profoundly absurd. Okay, let me just try and find. I mean, I'm looking. There's a talk between him and Terence McKenna, that bloke we just listened to. Wow, I'm not going to listen to that. Jeez, these guys, they were big back in the day, isn't it? Right. Okay, there's a little video here. Leo Cavalier. It's quite a cool name. Right. Let me just see if I can. Leo Cavalier, I'm playing your video. Thank you very much. Please write my club for full remuneration. And let's share the screen then, shall we?
Jesus.
Mary and Joseph. Why did you say Jesus?
Sometimes I like to pretend that I'm a Christian.
Oh, okay.
It's an entertainment thing I do.
Okay.
Sometimes
All right, let's just play on this video. This is from the channel called Leo Cavalier, a good channel if you want to go and look it up, I'm sure. Thank you, Leo.
Morphic resonance. And why was its author, Rupert Sheldrake, considered so dangerous that his TED Talk was actually banned back in 2013? Well, first off, morphic resonance started in 1981 as a theory by a Cambridge biologist to explain the development and apparent self-structuring of different life forms. But what it ended up implying about the evolution of the universe, the workings of reality, and the nature of the mind was so profound that it could not be taken as anything less than either revolutionary and enlightening or pure scientific heresy. So why is there such a great disagreement between these two belief systems about the nature of the world? And what is so extraordinary about the structure of the universe as we know it that it requires an explanation reaching beyond even the confines of time and space? Today we'll answer all these questions and more in order to help you, the viewer, to grasp the tenets of this theory and develop a new perspective on what it is that reality fundamentally does. Before we try to unpack all of this, we need to first understand why this theory is necessary. I mean, what is it accounting for in the first place? Well, it turns out that our understanding of biological processes is not congruent with our physical understanding of the universe. And not because biological systems are just really complex physical systems, but because the nature of how they are structured may be fundamentally different in some way. The mechanistic perspective of biology asserts that organisms are just like machines. Though they may have many complex moving parts, you could still break them down and see it's just an arrangement of simple forces and reactions explained by physics. In principle, this mechanistic perspective implies that the entire structure of limbs, the brain, organs, and the step-by-step development of the biological structure must be present even when it is just a single cell. I mean, yeah, that's what DNA is for, right? Well, yes, but not entirely. What DNA really does is give the instructions for creating a variety of proteins. Now, some would argue that it is these proteins that, quote, know the form of the organism in some way and act like architects of biological forms throughout embryonic development and onwards. But if anything, Sheldrake thinks this is just passing the role of a designer to the proteins themselves, when in reality they are more like the tools by which the form actually emerges. He believes that although many biological functions can be reduced to a scientific explanation, that doesn't mean the whole intertwined complexity of the organism can be reduced in the same way. For example, recent studies done on 30,000 people identified 50 genes associated with height, yet those genes only explain 5% of the heritability of height, meaning we still don't even know why tall parents have tall kids. That being said, the whole of biology is predicated on the faith that one day, given enough time, data, and calculating power, we could fully understand the development of biological organisms. Even though most people take this perspective for granted as if it were already true, this is still just a fantasy. Such scientists assert that there exists some perfect mechanistic reason for, say, the folding pattern of a protein based on its polypeptide chain and amino acids. Although we now have software that can sometimes infer from similar proteins to predict folding patterns, we still don't know exactly why one protein form takes its specific structure. We have no explanation for what that fundamental mechanism is. Rupert Sheldrake believes he has such an explanation. Morphic resonance suggests that the variety of complex and miraculous forms and structures found throughout our universe should not be taken for granted. I mean, think about it. Just because oxygen and hydrogen, for example, can combine to form water, that doesn't mean that they necessarily will. Obviously, other combinations do exist, as well as no combination at all. The same is true for the variety of molecular compounds found all over the Earth and the universe which are necessary for life. Just because chemistry proves that they can come together to form one structure, doesn't mean that they always have. We have the advantage of hindsight in these cases where instead of having to predict which molecular compounds will take place, we can instead trace back how they could have taken place and assume it must have always happened the same way. I know this is probably confusing. It basically goes against everything you were taught to think in chemistry class, but I promise this is going somewhere, so let me give an example. Alright, so chemists want to synthesize a bunch of different molecular crystal compounds for medical and technological applications, right?
This is quite funny. We've got Terence McKenna here. Hello, Terence. I believe you've come from beyond the grave to have a word with us.
Well, yes, you practice enough transcendental meditation and anything's possible. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hello, Vegan Equilibrium.
I don't know of vegan equilibrium, but I'm sure they exist somewhere within my psyche. The real question is where? do the voices come from?
Where do the voices come from, Terence McKenna?
Well, it's quite a paradox, but according to the Tupi people of the Amazon, it was all built within the genetic structure of the plant.
Okay, and what plant is the plant or the plant? Sorry.
The plants, of course. I mean, the plants teach us everything. If you don't have plants, you don't have knowledge. And the real question is, where do the plants get the knowledge? I mean, it's as if they came directly from the stardust themselves. We're all part of this swirling mess. I believe you wrote a song about it called Let's All Meet Up in the Year 3000. That was very cleverly put, but I'm not surprised because it should be within all of our psyches that we are all part of one great unification of everything.
Well, I can't take any, congratulatory remarks for writing it in good faith because it was actually the morphic resonance, okay, that drove me to do it, and it
I
wasn't
have
actually me.
seen I have seen the morphic resonance. If you take 10, 20 grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms, you're gonna see all kinds of resonance.
Can you let us know then, Terence? By the way, Terence, it is really good to talk to you because you're coming across very well, and I think you should come more on this channel, actually. Terence, what did you see during your ingestion of some strange Amazonian plants?
Well, the most remarkable thing I think that I experienced was the ability to actually see sound. No one would actually think that's possible until the plant imbues you with this power, which we all have within us. The plants just help us unlock what's already there.
And what did you see when you see? What did you see? As I want to know, what does it look like?
Everything that comes out of someone's mouth is an actual physical object in a way. You are moving particles around, atoms are swarming. It is no big surprise that there is a way that we can actually experience this with all five senses. I mean, what are they there for other than to help us navigate the physical world?
So, what colors are coming out of the speakers on your computer now whilst you're listening to this stream?
Oh, well, today I just experienced a plethora of different colors. I'm seeing a rainbow right now. No matter whether my eyes are
You
open
are
or
you are
closed,
you
I
in a
see
gay
a
bar, Terence?
technicolor. I'm sorry.
Are you in a gay bar by any chance? You're just seeing a rainbow. Just asking, like, are you in a gay bar?
Well,
Like,
in reality, the whole world is a big gay bar. I mean, what is gay? You ask one person and it means happy. You ask someone else and their happiness is getting plugged in the ass by someone of the same gender. And what is gender anyway? These are all just social constructs. We learn from the plants and from the indigenous peoples that help guard and protect the plants and the rest of the entities of this world that nothing is really what it seems. I mean, we're always swimming in and out of each other's asses, whether it's metaphorically or physically or otherwise.
okay, Terence, thank you so much for coming back from the dead to let us know what you think. I will say this is just a joke. I don't want to be haunted by the spirit of Terence McKenna. So, Terence McKenna's spirit, if you are aggrieved by what has happened on the stream, I would ask you to get back in your box and rest in peace. Amen.
This is actually the morphic field of Terence McKenna
Oh
that's
no! Oh no!
manifesting as a
Oh, I
spiritual
see.
entity.
Oh, I see. It's the morphic resonance of Terence McKenna. Ah, good observation, Seb. I see. Oh, now it all makes sense. Okay, thank you very much. Right, we'll press.
Sheldrick was just trying to tell everyone what the plants have been telling us for a millennia. I mean, if we could just learn one thing from a leaf, what do you think we could possibly learn from the entire forest? And by that I mean, can we actually see the forest for the trees? What we should all be doing is taking copious amounts of ayahuasca and eating tons of psilocybin mushrooms and really learning. That should be our school. That these public schools, they're just imprisoned. It's an imprisonment of humanity.
I have a tendency to agree with you there, Terrence, because, you know, like, there's something about the Jungian subconscious, you know, collective subconscious that is shaping humanity and the archetypes that drive us. And, you know, it's not something to be, you know, scoffed at, because, you know, I was the other day, I was looking at the state of modern world, and I was thinking that, you know, what can we summon from our ancestors? You know, our ancestors went through so much. They went through so much. And they didn't have fucking benzos. They didn't have diazepam. Not like me. I take diazepam every day, 5 times a day. And I drink bucket loads of apple cider vinegar. And I
I think the idea of diazepam is just a misconception, or of the because you have a contemporary idea about what a drug is. The Amazon contains every single kind of compound that ever existed.
It's my time! Terrence, it's my time now, you dead! Stay dead! I'm the zeitgeist now! I'm the captain now!
It seems like you need to experience a real ego death.
Okay. All right, guys. Let's go on and press play here for one moment.
To the shaping of living biological forms. Well, the concept of a morphogenetic field has actually been around for some time. First proposed by Soviet biologist Alexander G. Gurwitch in 1910, as a way of explaining the necessary wholeness in seemingly purposeful development of embryos. Most mainstream biologists believe some form of these fields exists and agree that cells must have a sense of positional information which regulates their development. But they disagree with Sheldrake on these fields actually being real, and instead assert that there must be some purely physical way that this information is being communicated. But in many cases, a physical explanation using DNA as the sole carrier of information does not actually seem to be possible. In a series of experiments done by C.H. Waddington in the 1950s at Edinburgh University, generations of fruit fly eggs were exposed to a chemical called ether, which caused the formation of a bithorax gene phenocopy in the developed fruit flies. This meant that the fruit flies, when exposed to ether, would develop an extra set of wings on their lower abdomen, which would not have formed in normal conditions. And after generations of offspring being exposed to ether and developing this trait, some offspring would still develop this trait even without being exposed to ether. This led Waddington to propose that the morphogenetic development of these organisms was influenced not only by their DNA, but actually arose from a creode, a word he coined to describe a specific reinforced pathway of development. So basically, after generations of having their development altered, this pathway of bithorax gene expression became strongly reinforced in the fruit flies so that the creode would apply even under normal circumstances. This gives us an insight into the process of morphogenesis, the way an organism develops through all its different parts in order to reach its whole form. As we know, an organism starts with just a kind of seed, a single tiny cell. No form of arms, eyes, brain, anything, just complete potentiality. But over time, structures develop throughout this embryo which self-organize in a way that seems to strive towards some final form. This final form is called an attractor. Even in circumstances where a two-celled urchin embryo has one cell removed, it does not form half of a sea urchin, rather it forms a whole sea urchin half the size. Or in the case of a dragonfly egg, where it is only given half the egg to grow, it still finds a way to develop to its full form within the new environment. I mean, we know this. Species are very adaptive and can somehow kind of unconsciously find a way to develop and grow around very prevalent obstacles. So what this implies is that the wholeness of an organism driven by its attractor is principal throughout its entire form, especially during morphogenesis. The whole is contained in the part just as the part is contained in the whole. The interconnectedness and collective goal of the embryo is necessary for the actualization of any single part, such as the apical ectodermal ridge, which is the initial structure necessary for the development of limbs. This harkens back to the idea of...
Any comments on this so far, gentlemen?
Well, it just speaks to the epigenetic nature of all living life on Earth. I mean, as we experience things, that resonates throughout our entire DNA structure and influences how we express those genes. I learned this from a plant in the Amazon.
Thank you. Okay, let's press play again.
Holons, which I've gone into on this channel before, but basically holons are an integration of different parts which are themselves smaller wholes. But the holon influences the actions of its parts in a way that transcends the parts themselves. This explains why biological structures are measured to behave more randomly when isolated from the rest of the organism. Morphic resonance uses this perspective to suggest that the size or shape of the organism is not predefined at the moment that first cell inherits its DNA. This kind of just gives the tools by which the organism can develop, but the form itself emerges over time as a result of influence by other existing forms from the same species. This pathway then becomes reinforced and sometimes modified through the course of evolution, as we've seen with rapid developments in species over time. So this gets us into the crux of morphic resonance. This is why crystals synthesize at the same time, why species develop in the same way in different conditions, and why some organisms can develop a whole new body just by cutting off a part. Because existing forms and structures contain morphic fields, and it is the sum of these fields which influence the development of similar forms across time and space. Okay, so this is where we venture into...
Right. Okay, at this juncture, okay, we have to look up the alternative view. Okay. Seb, feel free to talk to Terence there while I look something up on Google. Are you there, gentlemen? Seb, you're muted.
By there, I'm sure you mean, am I here? And by here, do you mean that I am actually occupying this physical space? Well, that's something that we can't be positive about, but we can be sure that we exist. But where does the existence come from? Where does it come from? As I learned on my first ayahuasca experience, the thought that entered my head was, I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
almost metaphysical territory, these fields. Sheldrake proposes that these morphic fields might exist within a morphological space that is invisible to the everyday physical world, which reminds me of Plato's metaphysical theory of forms. But that's not to say that these forms exist outside of the earth and make some kind of divine impression on it, but rather this morphological space communicates the structure of already existing forms like in living species. Now I know you're probably asking, how come we haven't measured these fields? That is because they operate within the laws of physics by using a probability distribution. This probability distribution implies that there is no one set form of lion, for example, but rather the attractor which directs development is somewhat an averaging of all the lions to ever exist, more so influenced by its ancestors and even subtly influenced by similar species. Sheldrake makes note of specifying that these fields are not really metaphysical, but are well within the physics of a universe that operates on a basis of habits rather than concrete laws. So these probability distributions form and act as a result of very real electromagnetic fields and real structures, and it is these structures that sort of change the universe in a way that reinforces itself. So it's like if we changed the speed of light. It would apply across time and space and wouldn't violate physics because it sets the definition for physics itself. Now you're probably thinking,
Okay, thank you to Leo Cavalier for his video. I'm not going to watch all of it. It's a good effort at explaining it. Thank you. Now, 100th monkey effect, as told to us by Chickpea to look up. Okay, I'm going to share this now. Chickpea, thank you for that. She reckons this is to describe why these habits form in a species and why they become the adopted mode of behavior for a species over time. It's not these morphic fields, it's this 100 monkey syndrome. It sounds like a bit like a disease, so it's a bit of a strange thing to call it. But however, let's share the screen here again. 100th monkey effect. Okay. The 100th monkey effect is an esoteric idea. Oh, esoteric. Okay. Idea claiming that a new behavior or idea is spread rapidly by unexplained means. Oh, how convenient. Okay. From one group to all related groups, once a critical number of members of one group exhibit the new behavior or acknowledge the new idea, the behavior was said to propagate even to groups that are physically separated and have no apparent means of communicating with each other. Since it was first popularized, the effect has been discredited in many cases of research. One of the primary factors in the spread of this concept is that many authors quote secondary, tertiary, and post-tertiary sources that have themselves misrepresented the original observations. So we are talking total bullshit. The 100th monkey effect was popularized in the mid to late 1970s by Lyle Watson, who documented the findings of several Japanese primatologists from the 1950s. Okay, so it is a load of bollocks, basically, and it's not really worth reading about, darling. I'm sorry.
It seems that the collective psyche just doesn't want to accept what truly is. I mean, we know that the trees and other plants use biophotonic energy to communicate with each other through their roots. So why would it be so far-fetched to accept that these monkeys could do the same thing using the biophotons that they get from the plants?
Thank you, Terence, for that rather trippy pronunciation. Let me look up here at something, and then we might open up the show to something else because I don't think we're getting anywhere other than wading through a mire full of bullshit. And I don't know if that's a good place to be, for a whole stream. I like to think we're getting somewhere, but if we're just stuck in the mud, what's the point? What's the point of it all? Can you tell me what the point is? Let me look up here.
You might
And,
learn from the plants. There's really no place to try and get to. This is it. We are here.
We're here.
It
This
is
is it.
happening
Everything is causing
now.
everything. Everything is causing everything, and everything that ever will happen has already happened in the state of universal objective truth. And that truth is within you, and you are part of it, but you're just a small part of it. But you are amazing because you are a little building block to the collective whole that you have the power to attach yourself to. And indeed, it is shaping your experience. And this is so deep, and it's so profound that it might take you a while to understand exactly the depth of what I'm saying. But I do have a book on the matter you want to buy. You might want to buy for like £21.99 on Amazon.com, and I will let you know when it's available. Thank you.
Well, the indigenous Amazonian people have a ritual where they would take a piece of written scripture of their own spiritual practices, of course, and they would bury it under a maguba tree. They would then, after a decade or so, eat the bark of the tree and be able to decipher and assimilate all the information that was in the written scripture. How How is that possible? Well, it gets back to the biophotonic energy that I was talking about. You see, a biophoton is coherent sunlight energy that exists within the nucleus of all living cells. So why is it so far-fetched to think that that we aren't all connected, or that we are all connected through the biophotonic network? I learned this from the ayahuasca. It spoke to me. It has a very motherly voice.
Thank you for that. Okay. I'm just trying to look up what Rupert's experiments were, because I heard and I read they were a crock of shit. But I just want to see. Okay. Experiments.
Yeah, so it goes beyond the physical world. The
I
experiments
mean, I
are
heard
in
he
the
did. I heard he did this experiment with rats in a maze, and basically, when rats were put in a maze, and basically they were put in it and timed to see how long it took them to find their way out. And obviously, before they found their way out, it was taking them a long time. But once one rat found its way out, subsequent rats uh, found their way out quicker and quicker.
Can't you see
Yeah,
it's the
he
morphic
reckons
field?
that's down to morphic resonance. I
Can't you
asked,
see?
is it not that the rats were smelling the other rats running through the maze and following the kind of trail of scent? I don't know. I mean, I presume that
What
it's a load of
is the real difference between the smell and the morphic resonance? That is the question we have to ask
Oh,
ourselves.
okay. So
Don't you? But I have an explanation. So the
go
morphic
on.
field, the answer all along was 369, the key to the universe. So what
Okay,
was
I'm opening up the show now. Okay, I do know that the if you want to look up the morphic resonance rat maze experiments, they're not really very much in terms of illuminating the credibility of morphic resonance. I mean, he says they are, but I don't think they are. There's also he has this thing where he did experiments where people were asked to sit with their back to someone else, okay, and the person behind them was to stare at the person in front of them's the back of their head, okay, but then look the other way at random points, okay, and basically the person in front was to press a button when they felt the person behind them was staring at them, okay. Now, in this experiment, in this clinical setting, Rupert Sheldrake said that they were correct 54% of the time, which is higher than the expected result, which was 50-50. But the thing is, it's not remarkably high. I mean, you wouldn't, you fit 4% of a difference isn't that remarkable, especially
yeah
only like 54%. I mean,
yeah that's right.
it's not a remarkable result. And the thing is, there was other scientists who tried to replicate the experiment, and they said actually it came out nearer to 50, or perhaps it did come out at
That's
50%.
right. I mean, a lot
And
of
so,
these.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought it would be. So in a lot of these experiments, they are actually the participants are actually able to pick
Because he
up
was trying to say that there's a
certain
morphic
patterns.
resonance that we can all sense, and that was helping people. He was saying there was a morphic resonance that we can all sense, and that was helping people deduce when someone was staring at them. I mean,
But
we've
there
all had
could
that
have been
feeling
a
that we're being
pattern
stared at.
in it. Last time might have picked on that there was a pattern in how it was set up, or they could have thought with
I
other
mean,
participants.
if they were sitting that close together, I mean, you wouldn't know. There could have been very slight fucking audio cues, like when you might have heard the shuffling of their neck running past the collar of their shirt as they turn their head or something. I mean,
Yeah,
there could have
that's
been
right.
some slight shadow in the room as the sun or the light
Yeah, there
overhead.
could be a mirror.
Mirror, yeah.
They could have accidentally stumbled on the bookshelf.
Maybe the halitosis from the person behind them was stronger when they were when their mouth was like facing the person in front of them than when they were moved away. You know, so there's all other possibilities for why there was a 4%
Yeah,
deviation from the norm.
I mean, for all we know, the 4%. I mean, that seems so. It seems like there could be 4% variables. How many times did they do that experiment?
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it doesn't seem remarkably uh, in any way strengthening his
That's right.
his argument.
I mean, a lot of these experiments, just from sheer coincidence, sometimes the results will be 4% more or 4% less. It won't exactly. That seems completely normal to me. It won't be like 50-50 each time. It's like if one has a dice and one rolls, or one has a coin, one does coin flips 100 times. It isn't going to be heads and tails 50-50. It's going to look like 46 or
Yeah.
47-53, something like that sometimes.
Yeah, so basically his experiments have been criticized by mainstream science for being poorly designed and subject to biases. And he's accused mainstream scientists of adhering to scientific dogmata, such as the constancy of the speed of light. Oh, for fuck! This guy, I'm telling you, he's some man for one man. He's really able to hold it together while saying all this stuff, And as I said, he probably bought his house on all of this, this is 40 years old. He's been dining out on this for a long time. Well, there you go. That's Morphic Fields. We didn't really get anywhere. We didn't really do much, and I'm sorry. It was a bit of a chaotic stream. But we can open it up now to talk about other matters of the mind. Whether you believe in any, hidden powers of the mind that aren't really generally accepted by mainstream science or society. Maybe you believe in telepathy. Maybe you believe in the ability of mind over matter to the degree that you can manifest reality by merely meditating or concentrating, focusing on an idea. Maybe you can actualize something just by thinking of it, enough. I mean, some people believe that. And such and such. So if you are willing and wanting to come on here, now's the time. We've got about 2.5 minutes to let people on. If nobody comes on, I will close the curtains on the show and call it a wrap. So, Seb, is there anything you'd like to say while we're waiting 2 minutes for anybody to come on here?
Yeah,
Link is there, guys.
Yes, I doubt that anybody would come on. It's just the pessimist in me, like the force of suck, is saying nobody's coming on. So I thought about the force of suck as a metaphorical thing when one thinks things are going poorly in one's life, or that it just seems like bad things are going to happen. But so it's not intended to be like a literal force or anything.
Okay, so right, guys, you got 2 minutes to get on here, or else we're calling it a wrap.
Okay, like I have stuff to say about it, but I mean 2 minutes to talk about it.
Go on then.
I guess I could talk about it for 2 minutes.
Go on then.
Yeah, I guess there's the law of attraction thing that a lot of people talk about, and like I'm not against people doing it, since I can see a utility in it. It gives some sort of excitement back to their like day-to-day life when they think about greater possibilities that could happen, or they start to become optimistic about their future, and some people try to manifest certain things, which would ultimately put them in the position where they would have the motives to try to do what they want to do. But then sometimes some people might try to manifest winning the lottery or stuff like that. But ultimately, I believe that the people who do the law of attraction thing, I believe they have a certain, most of them have a certain responsibility with it, where they wouldn't put themselves in complete jeopardy, which alludes to their even it alludes to the practitioners not fully believing in the law of attraction. I guess if they did believe, they could just attract things like effortlessly, then I guess they would try to do more things all the time. But I guess the reality is like reality is like a 7 feet tall sparring partner that shows you your martial art or your way of doing things doesn't work.
Okay, well, what is interesting is in Jainism, okay, they believed in a kind of knowledge that is called avadya, and it basically it is coming from the above downwards, okay, into objects, and it's a kind of knowledge that we're all said to possess, okay, but obviously some of us don't utilize it, okay. So what Sheldrake was talking about has got some following in Eastern religions, okay. Hinduism obviously was mentioned earlier as well. Obviously, Jungian psychology would be supportive of Sheldrake and his morphic fields to some degree. I suppose Buddhism to some degree as well, if we are all one. But whether that would affect us is a matter for meditation. Yeah, I'm a bit tired, and I'm kind of falling apart at the seams here, conversationally.
At the seams.
So, Chickpea says, "What are your thoughts on clairvoyance?" Yeah, I mean, thinking things without apparently having the prior knowledge to deduce them. I mean, I don't know is the answer. I mean, I've heard and watched. I can't remember offhand, but I've seen documentaries on clairvoyance being used by the police to solve crimes, and it seems
Yes, of
compelling.
course.
It seems compelling.
That's what one has to be worried about, actually. If one is one of those hoodlums, one has to worry about the psychic cops. And instead of having the fucking police siren or the light on top of their car, they have the crystal wisdom ball on top of their police car that always show them where the crime's happening. The psychic
Indeed.
cop.
Indeed. Okay, guys. Well, look, it's a short but sweet stream. Well, it's not that short, but it's enough. I think we've reached. We should have retired a long time ago, basically tonight. This stream went on far too long, and I am, for one, terribly sorry about that. Would you like to apologise as well, Seb, for the fact that we wasted people's bandwidth tonight talking about morphic resonance to the degree that we didn't really get anywhere? We didn't solve anything. We didn't offer anything, fulfilling.
No, I don't think we should apologize, since, like, if we don't try to go out of our way to explore things, then we won't find. I mean, that was a worthwhile endeavor.
Wow!
If we're supposed to get out of our comfort zone and do new
Hmm.
things anyway, are we going to talk about determinism, death, procreative ethics?
Well, it was
And
outside of our comfort zone.
yeah,
Now we will do another show on Wednesday night this week. So we'll try and do shows generally Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Okay, 3 times a week. And Seb, what are we going to talk about this Wednesday? Let's have a little brainstorming session. What the hell are we going to do?
What about, like, I thought grit, since I find that important, or what about the underdog stories, like when
Underdog stories.
we got a tie with the Apollo Creed in the first one, and I find value in those underdog stories, actually, and you in your writings you try to find a hope. And what's more hopeful? What inspires more than underdog stories? So what about that? Since one can use that.
Vegan Equilibrium says Peter's online vegan speed dating is on Wednesday night. If anybody's vegan
I know that's a
and
thing.
cares about animal welfare. Sorry, what did you say, Seb?
Yeah, so I had a clairvoyance about him not kidding, and that it was a thing.
I want to say thank you to Terence McKenna for coming on here, or at least his Morphic Field coming on here tonight and entertaining us all. That was very funny, actually. Congratulations. That really did tickle me. So yeah, we'll come back on Wednesday with a better show, a new, bigger, better, and more amazing show. All right. Thank you. Take care. Say your final goodbyes for the evening, Seb.
Bye bye. Onwards.
Onwards.